Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to start off a little bit differently with a little bit of a cultural note about where I live. Those of you who follow along with the channel will probably be more interested than those who are just jumping in for Psalm 72. But I live in Albania, my wife and I, and the coffee culture here is very strong and people are also very hospitable at it. As far as the coffee goes, I've been in several other countries in Europe. I've never seen coffee culture quite like this. Everything is done over coffee, business, meetings, everything. And people it's just like a way to show hospitality. And I think it's really, really great. And so my neighbor, we're in like kind of like an Airbnb at the moment for like another month. Long story. But my neighbor, who I've only like said hello to, she pops over. She's an older lady. And she's like, "Do you want kaffa?" Which is coffee. And I said, no, it's fine. It's fine. And so she goes back into her house, and then about 5 minutes later, she drops this off, which is 2 shots of espresso, 2 cookies or biscuits, as they would call them, and then honey, which is miel in Albanian. And so this is what's fueling today's video. But people here are super hospitable, and they do not drink filtered coffee like like typically we do in the United States, like drip coffee. That pretty much doesn't exist. It exists here, but like it's not very common. Nobody drinks it. They drink, most people, if you're a hardcore, living citizen of Albania, you just drink this, which is a straight shot of espresso. No milk, no sugar, nothing. And my wife has become full-blooded Albanian, and now she just drinks straight espresso shots. I'm not quite to that level, but for the sake of enjoying the hospitality, let's give it a go. They make cappuccinos here, which are smaller, that's smaller than the ones in the States. And they're like 2 parts milk and 1 part coffee. That's generally what I drink. Maybe I'm a sissy, but the straight espressos, I'm not there yet. But that one drink will probably power me through as we talk about our study today, which is Psalm 72. So now let's finally get into it. In the Bible, I don't think coffee is ever mentioned. I think coffee came from like South America or something like that. So kind of on the other side of the world. So Jesus did not drink coffee as far as we know. But, okay, sorry. Psalm 72. Let's talk about this. The author of this psalm is somewhat debated. There's some verses that seem to suggest maybe it was Solomon, some verses that seem to suggest maybe it was David. There's a whole debate about that, and I'll let you dig into that outside of a 5-minute brief summary, although I'm sure we're going to exceed 5 minutes today due to my cultural field trip. This PDF, which is available on our website, can be downloaded for free if you want a copy of it. As far as New Testament references to Psalm 72, we don't have any today. Themes. This psalm is pretty straightforward as to the main point of it. First, a blessing for the king of Israel, and then a blessing for the God of Israel. Definitions, we have 3. One of them is a term, and then 2 are places. So the first one is dominion. Appears in verse 8. Dominion is the power to control, the right to rule, or a king's scope of rule. 2 places we got to talk about. Sheba is the first one. It's in verse 15. If you remember, Solomon had a conversation with the queen of Sheba. So we talked about it back during the time of, back when we were studying about the history of the kings in 1st and 2nd Kings. The kingdom of Sheba has not been located with certainty. Some people believe that it was on the Arabian Peninsula near modern-day Yemen, while other people think that it may have been in Africa. We also have Tarshish. Tarshish is in verse 10. This was a port city which was in what is now modern-day Spain. We know that Solomon built a fleet of ships in Tarshish. We have 20 verses total in Psalm 72, and I've titled it A Blessing for the King. So Psalm 72 is a prayer for the king of Israel, and the psalmist prayed that God would bless the king's reign in several ways. And I've got 11 different ways listed here that we'll go over briefly. He prayed for the king to be a righteous judge. He prayed that the kingdom would be blessed and prosperous, that the poor, the needy, and the weak would be defended against oppressors. He prayed that evil people would live in fear of the king. He prayed that righteous people would flourish and be able to live in an age of peace during the king's reign, that the king's dominion would increase, quote, to the ends of the earth, that foreign kings and distant tribes would come and pay tribute and give honor to the king of Israel. He prayed that the king would have a long life, that he would be rich with gold, that the citizens of Israel would pray for the king continually. And finally, number 11, he prayed to God for the king's fame to increase and his name to be blessed by all nations. Towards the end of the psalm, after blessing the king, the psalmist blesses the God of Israel, who is obviously the King of Kings. He says this, quote, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who alone does wondrous things. Blessed be his righteous name forever. May the whole earth be filled with his glory. Amen and amen." And that is the end of Psalm 72. Before we do our application today, shots of espresso. Oh no. The Apostle Paul, who, as far as I know, did not drink coffee, he directed Christians to pray for government leaders, kings, and those who are in high positions. He says in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, "First of all, then, I urge that supplication, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for all people, for kings and all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life, godly and dignified in every way." So how do we do that? You ever, gone to pray for a leader, maybe your president, or maybe a king? If you live in a country with a king, you say, well, what exactly do I pray for? I think this psalm gives us a pretty good model, several items that we can pray for our rulers that the psalmist prays for his ruler in Psalm 72. And these are namely the first 5 that are listed in our outline there. Pray for the leaders of your country to be righteous judges, not to be corrupt. There's plenty of corruption in the world, plenty of reason to pray that prayer. Number 2, for their kingdom to be blessed and to be prosperous, for the people to be prosperous. Number 3, that they will help the poor and the needy and the helpless to be protected from oppressors. It's very important to God. We see that all throughout the Bible, that he's protecting these weaker people from people who take advantage of them, and God looks down and looks in anger at people who behave that way. Number 4, that the leaders would be the enemies of evildoers. We want them to uphold virtues, good virtues, not to support and perhaps supplement the evil that's going on in the world. And then number 5, pray for the righteous to flourish and to be able to live in peace. We want to be able to live in peace, to be able to teach and preach the gospel and spread the good news of Jesus without interference from the government. So I think that's a good place to start to help you incorporate some of these prayers into your prayer life. And certainly I know my home country and many others in the world right now, their leaders could certainly use these prayers.